That melody is a little bit different from a standard melody on a Native American flute. I'm playing in a different mode. It's called mode 4, and the rule is very simple. I keep the fourth finger from the top, the fourth hole from the top, covered all the time. Normally our rule is you keep the third hole from the top covered all the time. Now I just switch and close the fourth hole from the top and keep that covered. Feels a little odd at first. You have to get used to keeping this finger down, and you're putting the third finger down, which is normally down all the time. You're putting that to work. So it takes a couple of minutes to get used to picking that finger up. We call it the unloved finger. The other thing about the way I was playing was notice the home note of my melody. Typically, our home note or root note of a melody is all holes closed. We begin our melody there, we end our melody there. Now we're moving it up. Our home note is going to be the bottom two holes open and four fingers are going to be closed. So, why do we call it mode 4? Well, there's a number of reasons. Four finger holes closed is the root note. That's one of the reasons. Four finger holes, I begin and I end my melodies here. I also keep the fourth finger from the top closed all the time. And the third reason is the interval from the bottom note. This interval that beautiful interval has been called the perfect fourth. Perfect because it's such a beautiful interval, and the perfect fourth puts us in mode 4. Another reason why we call it mode 4. Now, I'll play a short melody, beginning and ending, on this mode 4 note, and notice that I can actually use the notes below my root note. I'm just not going to begin and end there. So, a mode 4 melody. Why do we want to use mode 4? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, it gives us an entire second pentatonic minor scale on every Native American flute. The first pentatonic scale we learned, we begin on the bottom note. We keep the third finger from the top closed. That's the regular old pentatonic minor scale. And it has the key of whatever this note is. Play that note. If you need to find out what note it is, what key your flute is in, play that note, look at that on a tuner, and whatever this note is, that's the key of the flute. Now we have a second pentatonic minor scale in every flute. And the note that it begins on, this note, four holes closed, is the root of the second pentatonic minor scale in every flute. It's the mode 4 scale. Use the mode 4 scale, and flute makers, well, may get upset at me here. I'm going to tell you, you don't actually have to buy 12 different key flutes to cover all the keys. There's 12 possible keys. Now you only need 6 flutes. It is possible to cover all 12 keys with just 6 flutes because every flute has a second pentatonic minor scale in it. Now, of course, there's a chart that tells you what the mode 4 key of any flute is. You can go to the chart, or you can just look at your tuner or ask a keyboard player if you're playing with a keyboard, what note is this? You might even want to have some kind of an indicator on your flute to remind you what that second key is. Another great thing about mode 4 is it solves a problem about what flutes are consonant with other flutes, what flutes sound harmonically good with each other. Of course, the easiest thing is find a flute that exactly matches your flute. You can go around your flute circle and play that note and ask other players, do you have a flute that matches this on their bottom note? Okay. The other way is find a flute that's an octave higher or an octave lower. If I go around and I play my octave note and I ask people to find a flute where their bottom note matches this octave note, of course it's going to be a very small flute. It's going to be about half the length of this flute. find a flute that matches that top note, and now you've got two flutes that are an octave apart, and they can sound great together. But now we have a way of finding a flute that's a little bit higher. It matches this note. Go around your flute circle, play this note, and ask people to find a flute. It's going to be a higher flute. Find a flute where if they hold all fingers closed, they match this note. Let's do that actually. Okay, now I've switched around the audio setup, so I've added a loop pedal, and I'm listening to the loop pedal in these earbuds. I'm going to play my 4 finger holes closed note, and I'm going to look for a flute that matches this. I got a couple of flutes here. We'll try first. Let's play on the mode 4 note. Here we go. We'll try a slightly higher flute. Bottom note. Nice harmony, but it doesn't match it exactly. Another higher flute. Really a high tension harmony there. Not a match. Let's try this flute. Okay, so that's a match. I'll go back to my lower flute and play it in mode 4, and I'll play a repeated pattern in ostinato and see how it matches with that higher flute. And flute that matches it. So there is mode 4. Useful in a lot of ways, and a very easy thing to learn. In a couple of minutes, you can learn to pick up that unloved, that third finger, and really expand your musicality. Add a second key to every flute you have, and for the first time, you have notes that are below the root note, so you can transition from that bottom note and come up a couple of notes to complete your melodies into that fundamental, that root note. So have a great time with it, and we would love to have you join us at a workshop. These are the kind of techniques, very simple techniques that we cover very quickly in workshops and get people playing in consonant situations, valuable techniques that take a couple of minutes to learn and really can expand your musicality. So we'd love to have you join us at the workshop.